I don't want anybody to wait. I want you guys to go for it. Go for it. Because really, none of us, not any of us, are too busy to write and complete our projects. Not one of us. Okay, and I hate to use myself as an example, but it's just the way that it is. My first project, I was working 2 full-time jobs, married, had 2 kids, 1 on the way, and still I said I'm gonna write me a movie. And then right after I finished writing that movie, I went out and filmed that movie myself. And I mean, obviously I put a team together, but still I wrote it, directed it, produced it, edited it, did all that kind of stuff. So none of us too busy. And I did not neglect my family. I went to all of our little field trips. I get in trouble on our field trips, just to let you guys know. They'd be like banning me, because I have so much fun with the kids and stuff. They'd be like, Trevor, you can't go on the school bus anymore, because I'd be starting like little mini riots, like fun riots. But anyway, so rock on. And so I'm going to ask this, since it's now 7, a little after 7, I'm going to ask this. Are you guys pretty dialed in on what you guys are wanting to work on? Okay, because that really is the first step. There's no reason for us to lag on that. If you want to shoot a short film, please let me know. So I want to encourage you guys, because I did actually look at the chat. I want to encourage you guys, put it in the chat. If you're going to work on a short film and who your audience is, if you're going to work on a short story, or if you're going to work on a novel or a book, if you're going to work on, and who your audience is. That's pretty important, because we want to make sure that our message targets our audience, okay? So if you guys can do me a favor and just put that in the chat on whether in this class here, you're going to be working on a short, a feature, a novel, a TV pilot, maybe a short webisode, or any kind like that, because I would like to help you guys to make sure that you can complete those things. That is so important to me, you guys. So please go ahead and put that in the chat, and I will have that in my little recording. And then I'm going to try to hold you guys accountable to those things, okay? Because I really want you guys to start and finish your projects. If you're working on a smaller project, then, man, no problem. You're going to be able to dial it in. If you're working on a longer project, at the very least, we're going to lay a solid foundation for you guys to be able to follow through and complete those projects, even if you don't do it within the 3 weeks that we're together, okay? Does that make sense, you guys? So please do that. Throw it in the chat, what you guys are working on and who your audience is. If you're wanting to get into a film festival, if you want to get a manager, if you want to produce it yourself, if you want another company to pick it up, if you want to sell your script, anything like that you can put in there, I look at those and I want to be able to reach out and just say, hey, how's your project coming along? And then as you're writing, if I get an opportunity to look at some of your work, then I could say, okay, well, if you want to do this, then we want to make sure that we tweak this or do this and XYZ, because I want you to be able to reach your goals. Okay, so please do that for me. Put that in the chat real quick, just about what you're working on in this particular class. If you have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that you're working on, then I want to help you streamline those ideas so that you can at least get one project done, okay? Because I always have some success stories in every class that I go to. People finish their jobs, finish their works, and I want you guys to be able to say that as well. So rock on. You guys are amazing. Good morning, Jade. And it's good to see you this, well, is it morning for you?
It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon where I am.
Oh, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Rock on. Well, hello. Well, we're moving right along. So today, what we're going to go over, I'm going to turn the chat on so I can at least take a peek at what you guys got. Rock on. Lots of ideas. Very, very cool. I will let you guys know this. And then I think it was Anna that asked the question about, well, how do I deal with a lot of different projects? Was that you that asked that question, Anna?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
You gave a great
One of the
answer.
things that I actually did not address and is whether you're working on many projects for yourself or whether you're working on several projects because there are projects that you need to do, whether somebody, reached out and says, write this for me, whatever. So there's 2 different perspectives to that. So were you referring to projects that you're working on personally, or maybe somebody hired you to work on them, and you're having to just multitask and juggle several different projects? That was a question for you, Anna. You could put it in the chat if you don't want to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking whoever wrote in the chat, they had a lot of ideas.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yes.
normally it's like when someone asks me to work on a project, I have no problem. Like I'll just work on it. But then for myself, I have a lot of ideas. And my first problem was to try to figure out what's the format that I want to develop that story. Like how, is it a short story? Is it a long? Is it a TV pilot? Can this be a series? Like what is it? And then
Gotcha.
I think I'm getting better at that.
Awesome.
But then I have like a lot of ideas for like scripts and for like features. And then I'm trying to, like, the answer that you gave me last time was great, because it's you said like you have to decide which characters you want to sleep with and think about and live with for a while. And
Yes.
also when you talked about seasons, sometimes it's a season to do this, sometimes it's a season to do that. Another thing that happened to me lately is that I had this idea for a TV pilot, and I decided that I had to complete it and like have a first draft in like 2 weeks, because I wanted to send it to a contest. And I just felt that that idea was like a weight on me, and I had to get rid of it. I just had to do it. And
Gotcha.
then as soon as I finished it, I felt like relieved, and I was like, I'm gonna let that one go. And then I just but I have trouble deciding like which one am I going to work on next, because I think when you like jump from one project to the other, sometimes it doesn't work out right. I mean, it's like you said, it depends on the person.
Yes.
And yeah, I wanted to work on 2 of my own projects at the same time, but I do think that I'll have to decide like a week work 1 week for one, and then like I'll switch next week or something. I don't
Gotcha.
know. I'm trying to figure that out. And I also think it depends on the project and how much they demand and how much research you
Absolutely.
have to do.
Absolutely.
But your answer was like fantastic, and it helped me a lot. Like now I'm thinking like, if I really want to sleep with this character for the next 2 weeks or for the next 3 months, and like
Yes.
who do I want to sleep with right now? Yeah,
Rock on.
it was great.
Very, very cool. And you guys that are writing anything for television, here is the question, or here's the thing for you. It's who do you want to do life with? Because if you realize, man, we get so invested in our television characters, man, they really affect us emotionally. Obviously, in the world of film, we have our 2 hours or hour and a half, our 2 hour movie. Once it's completed, yes, they make an impact on us. But you guys that are watching television shows, your audience, the reader or your audience, they are wanting to live with your characters. You know what I mean? We've all watched shows where we watch these characters grow up. And if something happens to these characters, man, it really hits us, you know, because we started doing life with these characters. So if you are writing a television show of any kind, man, just think about that. Your audience is going to be doing life with your characters. And those characters are going to be imparting wisdom and knowledge and insight and all kinds of different things to your audience, which is very, very cool. You can help shape people's minds, you know, with your characters and the dialogue and the things that you do with your characters, because our audience is doing life with our television characters. So that is very, very cool. So I did not botch that answer. I was apologizing to Everly because I botched her answer. And I know Diana caught it because I was watching the recording and she was just like, you know, and then she went back and dialed it in. So I thank you guys for that. You guys looking out for me and looking out for everybody else that's in the class. So rock on. We're going to move right along. Remember, we did go over the easy approach, at least on the surface. You will hear me refer to that a lot. Different elements of the easy approach: experience, express, extract, and embody. Okay. And so I want to go back just really briefly about our experiences. Okay. Because that is an untapped resource into your voice and your originality, because there is no one on the planet like you, right? Everybody knows that. There may be similarities, yes, but there is no one on the planet like you, there is no one that has ever had all the experiences of your life. So when you hone into that, your experience, and you tap into that to make your voice unique, that's another way for your uniqueness to come out in your writing. So many people struggle and says, well, how do I find my voice? And for me, again, I go back to experience. Your experience is going to dictate the way that you write, just like your experience is going to dictate how your characters speak and how your characters act. Okay. And so anyway, that's really exciting. And then you think about it, when they speak, they're expressing something, right? Because they're wanting the audience to get something from that. So you're going to constantly hear me refer to these different types of things as far as our experience, express, extract, and embody. So we're going to go over the basics so we can lay the framework for the structure of our story. Okay. All right. So how many of you guys can tell me the definition of what an idea is? So I'm throwing it out there since this is a class, right? I'm throwing it out there. Who can tell me what an idea is?
Something you think of.
Hey, there you go. Hi, Sally. Good to see you. Yes. Okay. Anybody want to add to that? But it really is. It's just something you think about. Not anything in physical form, just something you think about, but it's just something for us to know. Anybody else want to add to that?
Inspiration.
Inspiration, absolutely.
Imagination.
What's that?
Imagination.
Imagination, yes. These are ideas, just thoughts in our head, inspiration, imagination, the what if type of deals. It's the plan. It's things that are abstract in our minds, nothing physical, okay? And just to let you guys know, for the record, you cannot copyright an idea. So all the posts that you see about, I don't want anybody steal my idea. Well, guess what? Your idea is not your idea. You cannot copyright an idea. And that is point blank, period. Okay. So anytime you see that argument go back and forth, just stay out of it. That's just dumb. It's just a waste of time. Unless you want to just go in there and say, I'm sorry, bro. Sorry, you cannot copyright an idea. So if you go to the copyright office, it literally will say you can't copyright an idea. What you copyright is the execution of that idea, okay? So a lot of people say, well, I have a lot of ideas, but I don't know what to write. So I'm going to help some of you guys formulate or take those ideas and be able to put them into a premise so that you can be able to tell your story, okay? So ideas, we got that covered. It's just thoughts, imagination. It's the what if scenarios. It's the plans. It's the abstract. It's things that are not in physical form. They're just something roll around in our head that gets our creative juices flowing. Go. Everybody's got that? So we know what ideas are. Rock on. So moving right along. How many of you guys already know what a plot is? A plot. John Mark raised his hand. Sally. All right. Anybody want to venture out and answer that question? What a plot is?
The main storyline?
It is the main storyline. Absolutely. The plot is the main storyline. Now, when you have subplots, you have things that are in addition to that. So if you have boy meets girl and something bad happens and they're trying to survive, maybe the survival part is the main part of that. But then you might have a budding love story as a subplot. Okay? Does that make sense, you guys? So your main through line of your story is your plot. Then you have subplots that you can add to make your story more three-dimensional, more realistic. Okay? So that's a great answer. Anybody want to add else? Anybody else want to add to what a plot is? And this is a big one.
A sequence of events.
What's that?
A sequence of events.
The
Diana,
hero's journey.
sequence of events.
We said that at the same time.
Okay, Diana, Stephanie, a sequence of events. Yes, this is very important. You guys got to get this. And this is just information so that when people are hitting you up and they start throwing out these words, you know exactly how to respond to that. Plot, yes, 100%. It's the main part of your storyline, okay? And plot is a sequence of events. And I will dial it down even further so you guys hear this. The plots are the what happens in your story, the events, the what happens, and what happens next. But here's the deal. This is what I throw on extra. You guys do this, you guys will be magical storytellers. The plot is what happens and what happens next, okay? The bomb blows up, so my character runs away. That's what happened and what happens next. Okay, what happens next? That is, and then you string those plots together to create your story, okay? But I want you guys to make sure that you add this element and make sure you be able to explain it, because people were like, well, I don't get it. Plot is what happens and what happens next. And for you guys, you magical storytellers, add why. Okay? Plot is what happens and what happens next and why. That is a wonderful, amazing, incredible checks and balance to make sure that everything that happens, the plot within the plots, the events that happen in your story, and what happens with your characters. Why did it happen? And when you answer that question, you're able to find out if that is a truthful event based on the experience, going back to experience, of your character and what you want your audience to experience. Did you guys catch that? So what happens and what happens next and why? So why did you put that event in there? Okay? Is it true to the experience that you want your audience to have? When my character reacts to that situation and he initiates his own actions, this is where we let our characters do their thing, okay? We don't let our characters to determine what happens to them. That's important. At least it's important to me. Anybody else can do what they want to do. But I don't let my character dictate what happens to them. They respond to what I do to them, and they initiate based on their experiences, okay? So we have what happened, what happens, and what happens next, and why. And we continue to ask the questions of why so that we can make sure it matches up with the experience that our characters has lived. His reactions should be true to the experience that he's lived and what we want our audience to experience. So if I look at that and says, my character did not respond truthfully to his experience, right? Then I can say, I need to put a different plot or a different event in there to trigger his actions. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions on that? Because you guys know I talk fast. Stephanie, go ahead.
That's what I've kind of been struggling with, like events and everything like that, because when it comes to, when you're talking about experience, I'm struggling with the, like what story do I want to tell? Like I know in my previous ideas, I've got like the yin yang relationships, etc. But I'm struggling to come up with what story do I want to tell, because when I'm coming up with my story ideas, it's just the fake scenarios that I come up with in my head. It's just, I guess it's improvised in my head. But when it actually comes down to, I've got the idea of the story, but then the events, I don't know what story I want to tell in order to create events to tell that story, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. And in just a moment, we're going to talk about our premise. And then I'm going to obviously ask that question if any of you guys know that, because I know people have experience with writing and with filmmaking and stuff. That's why I like to throw it out there so that they can kind of just jump on in. We could feed off of each other. But yes, I hear that question, and we will definitely get into that because I want you guys to get something dialed in so that you can run with it, okay? So that you can write and complete a project. Now, if you haven't started on anything, I'm encouraging you to write something short so that you can take the information, process it, and then be able to put it into works while we're still in the class. You see, if you're working on a longer project, perfectly fine. That's what I did. I started off with a feature film script that nobody told me I can write. Nobody told me I can film, but I did it anyway because I knew that's what was in my heart to do. So I said, this is what I'm going to do, and I set out to do it. So we're going to rein in those ideas, hopefully in this class, and we're going to set up what our premise is so that we can run with it. Because even if you even if you write something really short, I'm talking about 2 pages, 3 pages, you can still put in all the elements that we're teaching in this class. You see what I mean? And that way you actually get to execute the ideas and the things that you're thinking about and the things that you're learning. But if you want to run with your pilots, you want to run with your book, you want to run with your feature, then I'm behind you 100% and I will support you as best as I can. Seriously, whatever it is that's in your heart to do, we're going to make it happen. Okay? All right. So we're going to...
Can you, like, you said it really well the first time and then I lost it. What happens next, and why? And as I understand it, it's why did she react to the event the way she did? Is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. Because if they respond to a certain event in a way that's not true to their character, now we're going to move on and we're going to extract that event. You see?
Okay.
And I want you guys, I'm going to paint this picture, and this is I think it's so easy to understand. Diana and Stephanie and Helen, they know this. But if we were all like sitting in a coffee shop, you guys, and we're all just kind of hanging out, doing our own thing, and a bomb goes off inside the coffee shop, let's just say it's a big coffee shop, okay? Big. Now, assuming we survive, all right, we survive this explosion, each and every one of us is going to have a different reaction to that explosion, right? You know you. I know me. I know how I would believe that I'm going to respond, and notice what I said. I believe I know how I would respond based on my experiences, okay? Now, you, just thinking about who you are, if that bomb went off in the coffee shop and you survived, how are you going to respond? Are you going to run away? Are you going to try to find somebody that is hurt and needs help? If there is a bad guy that actually did it, are you going to go and tackle him and rough him up a little bit? Whatever. You see what I mean? So you have to think that's how you are going to respond. So when we did our character development on ourselves, and then we start digging into our past, and we know ourselves, it's going to dictate our actions when something happens, you see? So when we put an event, a plot into our story, an event happens that triggers an action from our character, their response needs to be true to who they are. Otherwise, it's a false event that needs to be extracted. Now, with that being said, if there is a shift that's taking place, the character arc, within our stories, if there's a shift that's taking place, then maybe he might respond in a way that we didn't expect because his character started to shift. You see, you put truths on the inside of your character, and those truths evolve because they're continuing to learn and they're continuing to grow. Remember, when we first introduce our character, that is that moment when we see them within our stories, their past experiences, their character development is fixed. And like my brother said, Shito Kulukumba, I think I got that right. But like he said, we programmed our character because that's what you're doing. You're creating your world. You're programming your world. This is what it might be like the world that we live in. It might be this fantasy world that you create, but you're creating that world just like you create your characters. But we want to make sure this is your little, secret sauce. Make sure you have those experiences within your character. That gives them that flavor and that gives them that life, right? So yes, they could respond differently, but we have to make sure that there is a shift, a truth that the audience is able to pick up on. Otherwise, they'd be like, where did that come from? Where did that come from? You see, does that make sense? So it's what happens next, and we, you Legacy Street writers, are going to say, and why? Because that way you get to look back and say, well, this is the plot that I'm putting in there, but this is what I want my audience to experience. This is what I'm trying to express, but it really is not coming across. It's not going to lead me to my destination. It's not going to lead me to my end game. It's not going to resonate with my audience. So because I asked the question of why, now I can say, I'm going to extract that. I'm going to put something else in there. You see? Or when something happens and your character reacts and initiates, because it's not just about reaction. He's not just going to, he or she or it, okay? Characters are not always, people, but they're not just going to react to situations that you throw at them. They need to initiate based on the truths that you put on the inside of them. And if they initiate something that is not true to their character based on their experience and the development of their character as they begin to go through your story, then you might want to look at it and say, I need to extract that and put something else in there. You see, Sally, does that answer your question? That extra part is just the checks and balance that we do to make sure there is truth being presented.
Right. I just keep getting hung up on, because I get that whole concept. It's just
Okay.
that remembering it when I'm trying to connect the series of events and how, because you have to shift it so you get that character arc and how you, and how the character changes over time. So
Right.
I know it, but for some reason I can't get it to flow when I write. Does that make sense?
Oh, so this is something that you have challenges with in your writing.
Yeah, exactly. Because I keep getting caught up with too many events, and it would be a rabbit hole, and we're okay.
You know what? If you have time, let's hang out.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yes. If you guys have time, remember, I'm game. I love to talk story. Okay, so go ahead, Diana.
I don't know if this is going to help Sally at all, but the first time I heard of this with Trevor, one thing that helped me understand it a little bit better when I was by myself, because obviously I would love to have Trevor on call 24 hours a day, but you know, he has a life and a job, and that's not
No, he
feasible.
doesn't. He's for us. That's it.
I'm for you guys. Yes.
But something that helped me was when I was little and my uncles would read me a story or something, I would always do that thing of, and then what happens? And then what happens?
Yes.
And if something didn't understand, I would get confused and I'd be like, but why? And then my uncle would have to stop and explain the story. And then I started applying that methodology of pretending my 6-year-old self was in front of myself. And I would tell my story concept to myself. And if it didn't make sense to little invisible D, something was wrong and I had to go back and fix it. And that
that's
actually helped me.
Great. That's a perfect explanation, especially
Yes.
because I used to answer my kids that I would answer their every why.
Yes.
So that actually makes it more firm for me. And thank you for that, because that little nugget will help me going forward. Thank you.
Yes.
Happy to help.
That is awesome. Let me say this as a warning, okay? That don't do this necessarily in your initial draft, okay? Because if you constantly are asking yourselves why, you're going to start, stop, go back and edit, go back and edit, go back and edit. That is not the place for you to do that when you're going through your initial draft or you're doing your first outline, okay? So I want to encourage you guys, it really is a checks and balance for your story overall. But if you do that as you're just starting to get your story going, you're going to get hung up on that and you're going to be like, dang, I got to go back. We don't want to do that. When you're working on your first draft, we want you just to go straight through it as best as you can. Now, if something really resonates and you say, I'm going to go back and switch something out, then you go ahead and do that. But don't really focus on the why until you at least got your draft finished, okay? Because I don't want you to start and stop, get frustrated and quit, because a lot of people, that's what happens to them. You shouldn't edit too much, and I will dare say really at all, when you're doing your outline, going through your first draft. On your outline, just blow through it. Seriously, blah. They call it a vomit draft for a reason. Blah. Just let it fly. You know what I mean? So anyway, one thing that I want to add to plot, that's an important word, is the cause and effect. Okay, I didn't say those words. Cause and effect. So add that to whatever notes you're taking as far as the plot goes. It really is the cause. Something happens that affects something else. And that happens throughout your story. Stringing plots along, events, causes and effects, string those together. That's what your story consists of, okay? Series of events told in a logical sequence, okay? Cause and effect, cause and effect, going straight down the line to have your story, all right? So, you guys got that? Rock on. Moving right along. Okay, next thing is a premise. Who knows what a premise is? A premise. Premise. Okay, premise is real easy. And I'm giving you this information in these little, they're not really nuggets. It's when you have communication with people that do writing and do film, typically they're gonna throw out these words and then you'll just sit there and go like this because you don't know what they mean, right? I mean, that was me when I first started. Premise is real easy, okay? The premise of your story, exactly like Cece said, it really is the main plot of your story. The premise is the main storyline. So if we're talking about that bomb going off in our, coffee shop and we're just trying to survive, okay? Or maybe a better illustration is a hostage situation. We're all in a bank, somebody comes in, goes crazy, and he starts shooting tellers, not just saying, give me the money. Now we're just in a survival situation. So that's maybe the main part of our story, but then maybe friendships develop. I love when I see stories of different people with different backgrounds who clash initially that kind of come together, right? Help each other, survival, whatever. Okay, so the premise is the heart. It's the essence of your story, okay? And a premise is very specific. So you guys just keep jotting these notes down. Your premise is essentially your log line, okay? If you guys are familiar with that term, a premise of your story is your log line. It's you being able to communicate your story in 1 or 2 sentences in a catchy way, something that saying it in a way that someone is going to say, I would like to know more about that story. That is your premise. A sentence or 2 communicating the heart and essence of your story, okay? And it is simply this. For you guys that are struggling with ideas or stories, coming up with your story idea of what to work on, just think about this. You have your main characters, which can be people or things, because, for example, Cars wasn't about a bunch of people running around. It was the main character, Lightning McQueen, a car, right? So when I say characters, I'm not just referring to a person or people, okay? They can be objects, whatever your main character is. So your hero, your story, the one that we're focused on, the one that we're rooting for, that is your protagonist, okay? So your protagonist is trying to do something. He wants to do something. He needs to do something. Your antagonist is the opposition, the force that's coming against him to try to prevent them from doing something, okay? All right, so we got those 2 elements. Your protagonist, your hero, the main part of your story, the one we're looking at we're telling this story through this person's life and through their perspective. We're rooting for them. That's our protagonist. This protagonist is needing to do something. Your antagonist is coming against that protagonist, wanting to stop this person from doing something, okay? And really the last part of this is if the protagonist, your main character, does not reach his goal, does not fill his dramatic need, whatever that need is, and he fails, what happens? Typically it's bad. What's at stake? It really is putting your story together is just really those 3 elements. Your protagonist, your character wants to do something, something's trying to stop him. If this person is successful at stopping him, this bad thing, whatever's at stake, is going to happen. That's your story. That's your premise. That's your log line. Okay? You guys got that? See, this is just film school knowledge right there. Premise, your character, your protagonist, I have to do this. I need to do this. Your antagonist, no, you're not. I'm going to stop you from doing that. And if that protagonist does not reach his goal, what is at stake? That's your story. That's all there is to it, you guys. The reason why there's a lot of times I don't go too much into detail on certain things is because the more knowledge someone gets about things, the more screwed up they get. Because they're looking at, okay, I have to do this. And then they do that, and it's like, wait, you got to do this too. And then they're like this. Then they're like, wait, I got to do this too. Then there's another element they're trying to add to it. Then it's like, wait, I got to add this too. And then they're all looking all funky, trying to move forward, you know, and not getting anywhere because they're bogged down by trying to fit into all these different realms and these different areas, different information they got, different perspectives that they got. Your story is as simple as that. You have a person or a thing wanting to do something. Something is coming against them. And what happens if your character does not succeed at getting what he wants? That's your whole story. Okay, does anybody have any questions? So I'll actually pause on that. Does anybody have any questions about that? That is your premise. Okay, that really is. That is your log line. Telling your story in a sentence or two. What's that?
Just to clarify that, so because that's like gold nugget right there. I love that. I love the way that you put that. So your main storyline is your protagonist having a goal that the antagonist is trying to stop. What will happen if the protagonist doesn't reach their goal? What's at stake? Is that it?
That's literally, that's everything. Literally. So you guys take that, you see, and see what's going to happen is your mind is going to start, your mind, not what I'm telling you, your mind is going to start imparting things on the inside of you based on how you're wired. Okay. You guys remember the whole assignment about character development. Hey, go do character development on yourself. Okay. The reason why I don't get too specific about certain things, and yes, we will get into that later. We'll get into dialogue later. We'll get into character development later. But here's the deal. If I sat down with you, okay, think about this. If I sat down with you and we both sat down in a chair facing each other, and I said, tell me about yourself. And then I just, this is hard for me. Then I just remained silent. Then I just got quiet. Then I didn't say anything else. All I said was, tell me about yourself. What are you going to say? You would think about it for a moment, and you might even say, well, what do you want to know, right? For the most part, where do you want me to start? And my response to that is just tell me about yourself. Then your mind's going to start to scramble. Maybe start thinking about, well, what does he want to hear? You know, but then you're going to start getting at the heart of who you believe you are and start communicating that. Well, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a writer, I'm a this, I'm a that. Or you might start at the beginning, you know, but your mind is going to create that. Your mind is going to come up with what to say based on how you're wired. You want to tap into that, guys, because it's based on your experience. I have no idea what I'm going to say right now, but this is what's going to come out of me. Okay? I'm telling you, that's good. That's tapping into the essence of who you really are. You're based on your experiences, okay? So anyway, that's the reason why I don't go too much into detail on certain things. Because obviously, man, I can dig in this class, but we only have 7 sessions. So we're laying a foundation. And we're leaving that foundation open. We're giving you the foundation for you to step on to move from point A to point B, which is your completed project. Don't settle for anything less. But you're getting the foundation, and your mind is going to start piecing things together, you know, based on the things that you get a hold of in this class. That's why I'm like, ask questions. If you don't get something, don't understand something, ask questions. You guys should be blowing up that Legacy Street Writers group. Seriously, if you guys are stuck on anything, that's your fault. Your fault. Because here I am saying, hey, go ahead and ask me some questions. If you're stuck on something, if you don't get ideas, don't get plot, don't get premise, don't get whatever, ask away. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't, you know, ask away. So that's your fault. So stop being lazy. Ask your questions. You know what I mean? Stop being scared. Now, if you want, honestly, if some people may not want to put anything in the public chat, you guys just message me. You know what I mean? I'm open, you guys. So if you don't want to post anything publicly, you could send me a private message. I'm cool with that. I want to help you. I want you guys to succeed. I want you guys to move forward, okay? So, rock on. So now anybody have any questions on any of that? I'm gonna show you a picture thing, and we'll kind of go over it. I'm gonna send you the picture so that you don't have to trip off of it. Dang, we only got 15 minutes left of class or whatever, So I'm gonna send you the picture, and obviously you can look at the recordings, but I will kind of go over it, see how far we can get into it, and rock on. So, what's that?
Sorry. Just to finish that question I asked before, when I was saying like, what will happen if the protagonist doesn't reach their goal? What's at stake? And then I thought, what is the antagonist trying to accomplish? Is that right? Because normally the antagonist is trying to accomplish something, and then I guess in some stories it's because of they're the enemy to the protagonist, but then other stories it's because they also have a goal, but the protagonist is in the way of that goal. So would it also be good to look at what the antagonist is trying to accomplish?
Yes, you can, but here's the deal. The antagonist might be depression. Your antagonist doesn't have to be a physical person or even an enemy. Your antagonist it's any external or internal force that is coming against your protagonist, and it may not even be for a reason. If someone is battling depression or they have mental illness, that mental illness is the antagonist, or can be the antagonist. The mental illness does not have an agenda. It's just something that's there. And maybe this is, really jacking this person's life up, obviously, because obviously it's very serious. A lot of people, take their lives because of mental illness, you see? And so if you have a character that is trying to accomplish something, but is dealing with depression and mental illness, that could be the antagonist, you see? So the antagonist doesn't necessarily have to have an agenda in a lot of the movies that we watch. Actually, let me take that back. It all depends on what type of movies you're watching or what movie you're referring to, you see? So so your antagonist can or cannot have an agenda. Your antagonist is a physical force, because like a tornado in Twister, that was a great movie, okay? Twister, the antagonist is the tornado. The tornado is what it is. You see what I mean? So it didn't have an agenda to try to take out any particular person, but the tornado was going around jacking and wreaking up havoc and all this other kind of stuff. So you can have, nature can be an antagonist. What's an example? Oh, like Fault Line. Is there a movie called Fault Line? Something like that. Anyway, I'm trying to think of movies. San Andreas Fault, yeah, something like that. You see what I mean? So that's the antagonist, the destruction of the world, all these different things. So it doesn't necessarily have to have a motive. It just is, you see? And now when we're in a situation like that, obviously they were trying to rescue the daughter in that movie and the jacked up stepdad or whatever, you know what I mean? And stuff. So if anybody's not clear about that, just message me, okay? Or we can talk about that a little bit more after the hour's done, okay? So let's set the foundation for good storytelling. Because you remember, I said we're all storytellers. We are all storytellers. We just may not be good storytellers, okay? We're all storytellers, and we may not be natural, because we're natural born storytellers, but we may not be natural authors. We may not be natural writers, okay? We may not be natural screenwriters. Those are things that we can absolutely work on developing, and we can become great at any one of those things. 100%, no doubt. And if you have any doubts about that, come talk to me. If you think that you don't have time to write your story, come talk to me. Send me a message. If you think that, I can't do this because of XYZ, come talk to me, because you absolutely can do this. You can develop great writing skills. It's not just about, oh, he's a natural writer, he's a natural that. Oh yeah, there are natural athletes, but there are people who just have the sheer desire to be a great athlete that can even be better than those with natural talent, because a lot of people with natural talent take their giftings for granted. True story. In music, oh, I'm just really good when I picked up this. But then you have somebody that's just, man, I have this passion for it. I'm going to work at it. And they become excellent at it. They become recognized at it, blah, blah, blah. It's because that desire compel them and push them into greatness, okay? That can happen with your writing, with every single one of you guys. So if you have any doubts whatsoever about your ability to start and finish your project, please message me, because I will knock that thing right off of you. Boom, gone. And then you'll be moving forward, next step in your project, okay? So, cool. Now, so we're gonna lay real quick the foundation for good storytelling, because we're all storytellers, but we may not necessarily tell good stories, okay? Now, one of the things that's important is your audience. Who are you writing for? Because obviously, storytelling and writing, it's subjective. What is good to one person may be absolutely terrible to another person. So you want to make sure that your audience is targeted, okay? And that way, when you present your story to your audience and you get feedback on that, then, and they're like, well, it was pretty good, but you know this is right in the area where the sweet spot where you're wanting to present your story, okay, on a mass scale or on a larger scale, and they're like, well, it was all right, or they didn't like it at all, then you want to go back and work on those things, because that's your audience and it's not resonating with them. So we want to make sure that our audience is someone we're targeting or something we're targeting. That's why I was saying be specific about what you want to see happen with your screenplay, because it influences how you write it and what you're going to write, okay? We all got that? So here's my little ticket. You want to know having a good example of a great storyteller? Listen to good gossipers. I hate gossip, just to let you know. I do not gossip. I do not gossip. Nobody ever, ever, ever calls my phone to gossip. Nobody, because I hate gossip. But I will tell you this, if you're a gossiper, people be digging your stories, okay? Gossipers are great storytellers. So if you're a gossip, okay. So yes, gossipers, because this is why. This is good storytelling. A gossiper will tell you who the story's about. They will describe the person, you know what I mean? They will tell you height, they will tell you weight, all this stuff. Not that all this stuff is things that you're gonna include within your stories, okay? Now, you guys that are writing your books, oh yeah, you include all that stuff. In a screenplay, not so much. But gossipers, they go off and they be like, man, you know, this boy did this and this girl did this and this is what they look like, looking all tore up, blah, blah, blah. And they're just going off. Then after they set the stage of who they're talking about, they go into what happened, okay? And they tell you what happens within their little gossip story. And then, of course, they're going to tell you how it ends. But a great gossip, they gauge how they're impacting their audience. They watch the reactions. They can hear it in their voice. If it's on the phone, they can hear how the other listener is responding to their gossip. If they're doing it in person, they're looking at them, they're watching. And as the person is reacting to their stories, they'll either start to elevate or they'll taper it back. If the person's not responding, they'll start to shift a little bit. They'll add to it. They'll embellish. They'll exaggerate. They'll do all these different things to make that story something worth hearing. And they always do it for a reason. They have a motive. Everybody that gossips has a motive. They want to do something, whether you know that or not. See, so think about that for your characters. Everybody has a motive. Everybody has a motive for what they do. Something is motivating their actions. But so just think about that. Listen to a good gossip. Let them tell you their stories. And I tell you what, you will hear some great storytelling. Now it's a matter of just getting that on paper. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to set the framework for our stories, the foundation for good storytelling. I outline my stories. Do you have to outline your stories? No, you do what you want to do. I'm encouraging you to outline your stories if you're doing a feature, a pilot, 30-minute episode, 60-minute episode, doing something that's longer, shorter projects, 3 pages, 4 pages. Maybe you may not want to do that, or maybe, I'm sorry, I'll take that back. Maybe you may not have to do that. If I'm doing a shorter story, maybe 10 pages or whatever, I'm not, me personally, I don't need to outline that. I kind of know what my character is, right? Our protagonist, he wants to do something, something's coming against that person, and this is what they're after. This is what happens if they don't get it, okay? I can do that pretty easily on just going through a short film, okay? But just for the sake of this class, we're gonna start outlining, and I'm gonna show you my outline for a feature film, for a novel, so if you guys are writing a novel, or even for a 1-hour pilot, okay? It's 14 cards doing a 3-act structure outline, okay? An outline using the 3-act structure, okay? So here's this argument that goes around. There's an argument about formula versus form. People say, I don't outline because it's too formulaic. That, to me, I will say that's 100% not true. There is no box that you can put me in to limit my creativity. I've made that choice, and I know no matter what I have to work with, I'm going to write something amazing. And I want you to get that mindset on the inside of you. Because if you think about it, if you send your project to someone and a company picks it up or they options it, meaning they're going to rent it for a while. They want to hold on to it and they want to try to sell it or get it made or whatever. That's what an option is. So they take it. They may want you to rewrite some elements. Well, I'm not messing with my story. I'm not doing this. Well, if you want to option your story, yes, you are. So if you're saying you can't do that, they're going to find somebody else to do that, okay? Because your creativity shouldn't be limited by anything. If somebody tells you, if I tell you to write a story about 2 people in a coffee shop and a bomb blows off, or a gunman comes in and starts shooting up the place or something, we all are going to tell different stories, okay? But I put you in that box. This is your character. This is your character. This is what happens. You should say, I'm going to write the heck out of that story. If I say your story, think about this. If you're struggling with a story and you just want to put these principles in action, write a story about somebody going to the store and getting mugged. That's easy. You know, write a story about a guy sitting at the house and his girlfriend brings home a puppy that he didn't want, you know what I mean, or whatever, and they get into an argument or something like that. There you go. I put you in a box, but there's nothing that's gonna make me not tell an amazing story, no matter what the situation I get put into. So don't let anything limit your creativity. Now, this whole formula versus I don't do this because it's too formulaic, you know, it's not. A formula is something that it's like a recipe. They're ingredients. You want to make a chocolate cake, there's certain ingredients that you put in there, and ultimately what you're going to get is a chocolate cake. That's a formula. You see, a formula is like mathematical equations. You know, one definition says it's slavishly following rules. Okay, you know what I mean? So that's what a formula is. You have to do this in order to have a certain outcome. That is not what a 3-act structure is. Okay, that is not what having structure is. I'm just going to show you a structure for good storytelling. Me personally, I use a 3-act structure. Now, some other people might come along and say, well, I use a 4-act structure. Please, that's semantics. It's the exact same thing. And I will show you that right now. But it's the exact same thing. And you want to argue about that. Please, I don't have time for that, right? This is what works for me, so I'm going to continue to do what works for me. So 3-act structure, 4-act structure. Some people use a 7-act structure. Some people use a 24 sequences. Some people use beats, you know, a beat sheet, and they just plug in the information. Now, I think, in my personal opinion, some things out there may border formulaic. But even if I had to do something like that, think about this. It wouldn't feel like a formula. It wouldn't look like a formula, because every moment of my script, I have an opportunity to put my creativity into it, my uniqueness into it. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to go over just real quick the 3-act structure. All right. And so I'm going to just show you this little, because I laid out some cards. Normally, I only put 3 elements on the card, and I'm pushing on 8 o'clock, but I'm going to go over this. Normally, I just put 3 elements on my card, but I just went ahead and jotted down a bunch of stuff on there for you guys to see, and that way I'm just going to send it over to you guys somehow. Maybe I'll post it in the Legacy Street group, because I don't like blowing up people's emails. Then they're like, dang, him again? Huh. So anyway, I'm going to just show you this real quick. Please let me know if you could see it. Yes. Can you guys see that? Okay. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Actually, I'm going to make it, okay. So you guys can all see that, right? Okay, so you may not be able to read it right now. I'll make it a little bit bigger, because we're not going to go over all this. I'm going to just kind of streamline what this is. This is the 3-act structure right here. Now, some people that says, hey, I use a 4-act structure. Well, how many color cards you see here? Not 3 cards, you see 4 color cards. You see Act 1 has 2 separate sections. So some people says I use a 4-act structure. We're talking about the same thing, except I'm just saying this is 3 acts because I have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. Okay, you guys see that? This is not a formula. Okay, I'm gonna go off of this real quick because I always do this in all of my classes. Can you guys see this? Y'all see that? This is one of my wife's serving dishes. Yes, okay? This is form versus what I was talking about, formula. Formula says you have to put specific elements in order to get something on the other end. Everybody understand that? That's formula. This is a form, okay, of the 3-act structure. It's a form. Sometimes on Taco Tuesday, my wife will put lettuce in here, she'll put tomatoes in here, and she might put some cheese in here, right? And then on another tray that looks exactly like this, she might put, or no, I'll take it back. Sometimes I might be like, hey, we're having a little get together. Let me put some peanuts in here. Let me put some chips in here. Obviously, I'm just being silly. But my point is, this is a form, right? Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, I can put whatever I want into this tray, this form. This is my story. So if you guys can remember anything, this is my story right here. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Since this is green, I'll start on this side. Green, Act 1, your setup. You're setting up your story. Act 1 is your setup. Act 2, in the middle, the biggest part of your screenplay. This or screenplay or your story, I'm sorry, for you guys that are writing novels, this 100% applies to you, okay? This is the middle section, conflict. This is where most stories fail. There is not enough conflict, okay? Act 3, the resolution. This is how your story ends. It's technically called the, I don't even know how to say the word. So what? Denouement, whatever. Anybody know how to say that word? Anybody? Denouement, whatever. Anyway, this is the resolution. This is the resolution phase. So you have your setup, you have your conflict where most stories fail, not enough conflict, and you have your resolution, Act 3. Everybody got that? Fantastic. I always show this. Yes, my wife's little tray. Okay, so let me go back to this screen sharing. Okay, it is 8 o'clock right now, so I'm going to continue on. Yes, I'm going to continue on. If you need to bounce, just want to let you know, you guys rock. I love you guys. I'm pulling for you guys. I believe in you. And I'm telling you, you're going to do amazing things. I'm going to continue to talk about this. I'm going to go briefly through those cards just to let you guys know if you need to leave. I'm going to go briefly through the cards. Well, actually, I don't know how I'm going to do it because sometimes I just talk. But you guys can look at the replay, okay? Right? You guys can watch the replay, be playing this stuff, and then I'll have the question and answers and stuff like that. So I'm just going to continue on with this right now, and I'm going to show you my cards. Now, if I am writing a feature film, if I'm writing a novel, if I'm writing a 1-hour pilot, I've done all 3 of these using this 3-act structure. Again, you know, some people might call it 4 acts because, you know, dividing, because you have 2 portions of Act 2, okay? So now I'm going to, I have 14 cards. That's why I want you to see this as a whole. I have 14 cards in each column. A lot of people use this approach. They may add more cards. I've seen some go 17, 23. It all really depends on your writing. But a lot of people, 14, 15 cards, they work for them because they're going to end up with, if you're writing a screenplay, a feature film script, between 90 and 100 pages, okay? So now I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so you can just see a little bit of the elements that are here, okay? All right, so I'm zooming in. Okay, so I will say this even before we get into it. What I want you to do, if you're writing a feature film, if you're not writing a feature film, you're not writing a novel or a 1-hour pilot, you're writing something shorter. If you want to do, say, a 30-minute TV episode, then just divide the cards in half. Okay? 7 cards instead of 14. You guys all hear that? And it'll be on the replay, so you can also get that. So you're going to just divide the cards in half, and then you have a framework for a 30-minute pilot. If you want to go shorter than that, say you're writing a shorter project, maybe you want to end up with 12, 15 pages of a short project or short story, then go for 4 cards if you want, okay? All right, everybody got that? Now, these are the 3 elements. I just want to say this. The 3 elements that you need to start your story, okay? The 3 elements. I got the little stars on here, okay? This is my little artwork. You want to know how your film's going to start? Right here. This thing called the inciting incident. It's what happens in your story that sends your character off seeking their dramatic need. This is the real start of your story right here. Okay? The inciting incident. Just to let you guys know, this is not in any particular order. Okay? I just wrote down notes for you guys to be able to see and be able to reference some things, okay? So this is in no particular order. This is not saying this is where this needs to happen. I was just making notes on the cards since I'm going to send you guys the cards, okay? Or you're going to be able to have access to these cards. But if you want to write your story, the best thing you can do, know where to start? 3 things. The inciting incident is what happens to your character, and I put a little tiny example right here. It's something that's significant that happens to your character that sets your story in motion. This inciting incident needs to be significant. It's what happens to throw your character's life out of balance and sends them on their quest to restore balance. So if we use an example, or we use a gunman coming in and shooting up the place, that's an inciting incident. It's going to throw our lives out of balance. And in order to restore that balance, we want to survive. We want to maybe get the gunman and get our life back in balance, okay? Does that make sense? The inciting incident, something significant that happens to your character that throws their life out of balance, okay? So we have our start, inciting incident, and then I'm going to jump down here. How do you want your movie to end? Right here. Being that, it's after 8 o'clock, that in a nutshell, you want to start outlining your story. You want to get your story going. All you need are those 3 elements, okay? How your story starts, the inciting incident, and how your story ends. Those 3 things right there are really the framework of your movie. The rest of these cards, the rest of all of these cards are just like puzzle pieces. You're just going to start piecing them together, okay? And then once you have all these cards filled in, your movie's done or your story's done. I keep saying movie, but the cards are for your story. This is the outlining of your story. Do what you want with it. Make it into a movie. Make it into your novel. Make it into a television show, whatever, okay? So this is Act 1, and this is called the setup phase. And for you guys that are writing a screenplay, it's the first 15 to 30 pages of your screenplay. This is Act 2, the conflict phase, and it's the next 30 or 60 pages of your screenplay. This is Act 3. Then the last 15 to 30 pages of your screenplay. All right, so you guys can jot down your notes and stuff. I'm not going to be able to get through all of this. Matter of fact, I'll go through it in detail in our next class, okay? But really, if you're just starting out, I know some of you guys are continuing with your stories and you're already working on projects, but if you're just starting out, The only 3 elements that you need to get going, to start outlining your story, is how you want it to start, the inciting incident, and how you want your movie to end, okay? Now, this inciting incident, you want to happen as close to the start of your movie as possible, or your start of your story. I keep saying movie, but the start of your story as possible. That's the reason why you see movies open up with something bad happening right away. You're gonna hook your reader right away. So you have the explosions, you have the craziness, you have the turmoil. That's how your movie starts, and it's already the inciting incident right up here. Remember, this is in no particular order. They're just notes that I jotted down for you guys, because I'm gonna give you guys access to these cards, okay? Now, I wanted to let you guys know what goes on these cards real quick, and then the rest I'll just kind of leave alone. Okay, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. One second. Man, that's not going away. Sorry. So I know this is gonna be hard to read, but remember, this is your inciting incident. This is all you're gonna write on the cards. No dialogue, it's just an outline for your story. Okay, don't write dialogue with that, but on a little side note, if you get some dialogue, then write it on the back of your card. If you get something specific to that card or that particular thing that happens, I encourage you, just make little notes on the back of your cards. That's what I do. If I get a line of dialogue in my head and I don't want to lose it, I will drop it right on the back of this card, but I don't let it take away from just an outline. Look at, man, how do I make this thing go away so I can make this bigger? Stop the screen. Well, I got my bar at the top instead of at the bottom. Oh, hey. Oh, wonderful. I just moved it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yay. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Are you serious? Whoa. Whoa, rock on. I learned something new today. I'm glad I woke up this morning. Rock on. So listen, when you write on these cards, the outline for your story, you're just going to put something as simple as this. This is what I just wrote down. I have this in one of my books. Homeless man begs for change. That's it. All you're doing is referencing something that's going to jar or trigger your mind to know what you're going to write about. That's not detail right there. I get to move on to my next card, okay? Homeless man digs through trash looking for food, finds lotto ticket. Okay? You can make it even shorter as long as it can trigger something that's going on in your head, okay? Or you can make it bigger. Now remember, this is what I said about the inciting incident. Now this is not conflict. I'm just putting this in there for an example for you guys to see what I'm writing on my cards, okay? This is not conflict, even though it's in the conflict phase. Inciting incident, something significant that happens, throws your character's life out of balance, okay? Homeless man at a liquor store sees on the TV he has the winning lotto ticket. That's gonna throw his life out of balance. Started off with absolutely nothing. Next thing you know, for whatever reason, he finds a lotto ticket and he's now a millionaire. That throws his life out of balance. Things have changed significantly for this character. You see? So that's obviously not the best example, but it's still an example nonetheless. This is in balance. He's homeless. He wakes up in an alley, whatever. He's begging for change. That's routine. That is his life. Digging for food. That is his life. Finds a liquor store. He's trying to get some alcohol, sees on the TV screen, whatever. And then he finds out he's the one that's holding a winning lottery ticket. Okay? Now, of course, I'm just like, why would somebody throw away a winning lottery ticket? I'm not getting into that. I just want to make a point. All right? Does everybody understand that? So these cards are not for dialogue. If I had a piece of dialogue, I would throw it on the back of the card. Okay? I don't even need to think about the detail of what's on these cards at this point. I'm just going to continue on in my story and my storytelling. So here you have cause and effect. Here's a plot that happens, your inciting incident, and then what happens next. You're going to continue to tell that story. Where's he going to go? He's got a winning lottery ticket. He's going to go claim it somewhere or whatever. And your story is going to continue to progress. Okay, let me just share this last part down here. When I get to the end of each of these rows, okay, you notice it says plot point 1, plot point 2, plot point 3. When I get to the end of each of those rows, I put a plot point. A plot point is something that happens that is significant, that throws your story and spins it in a totally different direction. So as things are progressing, say on these green cards, which is the setup phase, as they're progressing in your story, next thing you know, boom, something crazy happens, and then it just catches the audience off guard and it turns the action into a different direction. We'll go more into detail on that later, okay? So, and then this major plot point leads us into the conflict phase, okay? Going back to the top. So I have this plot point, it spins the action in a different direction, and now that sends me into my act 2, which is conflict, okay? Since this is being recorded, you guys, this should all make sense, even though I'm just kind of rushing through it, okay? So here's my conflict phase. Conflict is simply this. Your antagonist, whatever that is, a person, place, thing, whatever, is going to oppose the protagonist. And it just increases. You know, your protagonist has small victories, then overcomes, then it just gets poured on a little bit more, and then that leads us to another plot point. I will let you guys know this. A lot of people that I know, and I do believe it's kind of taught in other places, they don't have a plot point number 2 here. I put one in every one of my stories. That is just me, okay? And I'm going to check the chat in just a moment because I'm maybe missing a question or something. But just to let you guys know, for the record, there are people that don't put a plot point here. I do. I continue to spin that action in a different direction on all the stories that I tell, okay? Normally that plot point is right here that leads us into the resolution phase, okay? So that's what I do. I add this extra plot point here. You do not have to do that. I do it, okay? This plot point spins the action, something significant happens, throws your audience off. It leads us into the resolution phase, okay? The resolution phase is how your story is going to end. It's where the final showdown happens. But I'm going to go more into detail on these cards later. What I really want you guys to get from this is the 3 things that you need to start telling your story. The first part is, how do you want your story to start? The inciting incident that's significant, that throws your character's life out of balance, that sends them on their quest to fulfill their dramatic need, something that they want to accomplish, achieve, and then how is your story going to end? Those are the only 3 elements that you need to get going, okay? All right, so I'm going to let you guys have a copy of this somehow. I'll post it in the Legacy Street writers group, and now I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat, so I'm going to end this. So you guys will get a copy of that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that. And does anybody have any questions that I missed, or anybody have any questions just in general?